So, guys, good afternoon, everyone, and you are welcome to today's lecture, which is our last, which will be the last session for this boot camp, first phase of boot camp. So, I'm glad you've made this thus far, and I believe that the course has you have gained some valuable, the course has been so valuable to you. As I do say, if you have any questions or any feedback or anything, you know, that you will like us to improve on, kindly get back to me either the Discord server or on the WhatsApp group. So without further ado, in today's lecture, which we're going to be looking at uh, cybersecurity session 6, and the topic we'll be looking at today is bug bounty, right? In our previous classes, we first started the session. We kickstart uh, the session or the boot camp, the cybersecurity boot camp, with the introduction to cybersecurity, right? And we saw the aspect of cybersecurity. We saw the operating system aspect, where we learned different types of operating system. That is, you know, where we saw the types of operating system that, aside from Windows, that we are mostly familiar with. We learned about Kali Linux, which is an hacker operating system and security researcher. We also from there we saw the network aspect of cybersecurity, right? Where we learned about networking, a little bit about networking, and from there we proceed to web application, right? Sorry, before that, we saw the aspect of firewall in networking, and we in that session we touched briefly about firewall, what it is being used for. Firewall is a packet filtering tool, that sits is either at the edge of a corporate network, right? Is either at the edge of a corporate network, which is known as network-based firewall. And we also saw we looked about host-based firewall, which are the firewall that is pre-installed on which host-based means a firewall that is running on a single system, right? So from there, we move into web application, where we look at what is web application needs for. Of course, we are most familiar with, if you are using Facebook, that's an example of web application. If you are using WhatsApp, if you're accessing WhatsApp through, let me show you from my own end. You can see from here, I'm accessing WhatsApp through web browser here. It's a web application, right? But if you're accessing it through app or a mobile app, that is known as mobile application. So we saw the way it interacts with the server, you know. So I'm just giving us a quick summary of what the course has entailed thus far. So if you haven't gone through the session, I will encourage you that you go back to from you start from section 1 and watch all through, right? Because today's agenda actually is to show us how we can actually uh, make use of the knowledge we've learned thus far, how we can use the knowledge to solve practical challenge, real world practical challenge, how we can use it to solve real world problem, right? So and it is important that to understand those previous session that we had. It is so important that you have an understanding for you to make use of what I'll be delving into today. So let me show you before I do that, let me welcome Yanu. Dada Yanu, please confirm if you can hear me.
Yes, sir. I can hear you, sir.
All right. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm fine, sir. You're welcome, sir.
All right. So you are welcome. So let me go to today's lecture. So please confirm, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can, sir.
All right, thank you. So what we'll be talking about today is bug bounty, right? What's the meaning of bug bounty? Before I move to the next slide, where it defines the meaning of bug bounty, is an aspect of cybersecurity, is a field under cybersecurity, and what it actually, the field actually entails is they look for vulnerability, you know. In our session, in our first session, actually, we define what bugs means. Bug is synonymous to vulnerability. Vulnerability is a loophole in a computer systems, in a computer connected system. So, as a researcher, another name for bug bounty hunter is they are called security researcher. As a researcher, we let me move to the next slide. So, what is bug bounty? A bug bounty program is a deal offered by many websites, organizations, and software developers by which individuals can receive recognition and compensation for reporting bugs, especially those pertaining to security exploits and vulnerabilities. As you can see, it is a deal that is offered by many websites such as Facebook.com, Google, Apple. Many websites on the internet today, they are actually running on bug bounty. They are offering bug bounty. What they entails, as I've said earlier, is just it's like they are giving access to anybody that has the technical know-how on how to find vulnerability in a computer on their. As you can see here, it is being definite here. It is being defined here rather. A website, maybe their Facebook.com website. Facebook.com. That is just part of the domain they own. They are the owner of Instagram too. And Facebook.com has a lot of subdomains, right? So if you can find vulnerability in that, of course, we will get to that stage. We will get to that point. If you can find vulnerability in that, if you have the technical skills, technical knowledge on how to do that, and if you have watched the past session, most of the things that you actually need, it has been taught in the past question. So in the past session rather. So let me proceed. So things to know before getting started in bug bounty. As I was saying, there are things that you must know. You can't just if you don't know the system, you can't break it. Please don't forget that. If you don't know the system, there is no way you can break it. Hold on, please. All right. If you don't know the system, there is no way you can break the system. So things to know before getting started. One, basic understanding of computer hardware and software, such as operating system and how it works. For example, I know that we are mostly familiar with Windows operating system, and in our first session, I actually give to us diverse types of operating system and their specific rules. We have Linux-based operating system. We have MacOS. MacOS is a product of Apple, and Linux-based operating system, right? So we have different types of operating system, but at least you must have the knowledge of all these three. Linux-based, for example, Kali Linux if you have heard about Debian, Ubuntu, those are Linux-based operating system, and Windows, right? So you must have the understanding of networking and TCP/IP. In our second session, that's where I taught on networking and what TCP/IP mean. TCP/IP stands for Transmission Control Protocol and Internet Protocol. What that simply means in a nutshell is that it gives us the summary of how networks, how systems engage with one another, how they connect to the internet, right? When you access internet, of course you'll be accessing internet through either Wi-Fi or Ethernet itself. Ethernet in this case, Ethernet, sorry. Another word for Ethernet is a cable. For example, on your phone, right? The one we are most familiar with. Let me give an example on your phone. You have an option of connecting your phone to your laptop using USB tethering, right? That is an example of Ethernet, connecting connecting to the internet through cable or through Wi-Fi, and we know that Wi-Fi is wireless, right? So in all those things, there are some protocols that those communication are actually following. There are set of protocols that has been put in place, right? For example, IP. I won't go back. I don't want to deviate from this. If you haven't watched that section, please go back to it and watch session on networking, right? That's why I thought about IP. If you don't know how to get your IP, I won't do that here again. So go back. So IP, as I said in that session, IP is necessary for devices to communicate with one another. For example, IP is just see IP address as a number that is at the front of your home, your house number, right? When you order something online, and the courier or the delivery boy or the person that wants to deliver the package to you, one of the way they will know where to deliver the package to is your home address. So also there are some addresses. For example, now when you type facebook.com into your browser, facebook.com also has a number which is known as IP address. So what is it called now? Your packet or your traffic knows where to go direct, and it will actually go to the Facebook server by using the IP address. Just imagine that you type facebook.com and you are seeing result of Google. It won't be right. So the reason why it is not such thing is not happening is because there are some protocols that those traffics, our connectivity are actually following, and they fall under TCP/IP and networking. So the next thing you must have for you to the understanding you must have is knowledge of Linux terminal or Windows command line, right? I think I also delve into that a little bit. I use Windows. Let me open Windows terminal here. You can press Control Windows key on your laptop and type CMD. CMD. This is an example of Windows terminal, right? And first generation of computer. This is how it was. Actually, it is not user friendly like the one we have today. They have to be engaging through it with the use of command line, or also known as terminal. So this is example of command line, and everything you can do on the user interface, you can actually do it here, even much more, right? So you must have the understanding, particularly of Linux, because most of the web server that will be encountering on the internet, they are actually running on Linux-based operating system like Debian, like Ubuntu, like Fedora, all of those operating systems. So you must have the knowledge of Linux terminal or Windows command line. You must also have the basic understanding of how web application works and its underlying components, such as JavaScript and HTML used on the client side application, and PHP language used on the server side. you know so I'm not saying that you must if you know computer programming. For example, JavaScript is a client side programming language. It is good, but don't think that if you don't know programming language you can't get started into inbound bounty. You can still start, but if he knows it, as I've said, it's just it's actually up to your game, right? So it can net for you if you know the language already, but you must have the understanding of how they works, the components that they are made of, right? So for example, now let me show you. Let me in web application also I use a tool, right? Called web this is it here, web appalizer. And what it does actually is that is a tool that whenever I open a website on my browser, it will quickly run through that website and gather together every component or every what's it called now, every frameworks, so to say. Yes, every technologies. Yes, that's the word. Every technology that is being used on that particular server. So in this case, let me show you an example of it. Let's say I want to go to kawan.com now. This is a website, and as you can see, it's been able to gather 13 technologies. Let me open it. Please confirm if you can still hear, if I'm still audible, and if you can still see my screen.
Yes, sir, I can see your screen.
All right. Thank you. Let me. So this is it here. This is our Paralyzer. You can see now it has been able to tell me the technology CMS, content management system. That is the full meaning of CMS. So it's telling me that they are using Dropper version 9. The database that they are using is Maria database. You can see the advertising technology they are using Twitter ads, widget, they are using Marketo forms, analytics, tag managers, JavaScript libraries, they are using jQuery, fancy box. So that is the purpose of these two. And PS, platform as a service. They are actually running this web app on Amazon Web Service. You can see the web server they are using is Nginx. You can see, and it's a form of Linux-based operating web server. As you can see from here, you can see infrastructure as a service they are using. They are using Google Cloud. You know, the reverse proxy they are using Ng. So the programming language, as I said earlier, they are using PHP. So from here now as an hacker, you can be able to deduce the type of component that is running on your target website, and from that you can actually tailor your payload to to exploit such vulnerability. Because for example now, just imagine that you don't know that your target website is running on Linux and you are tailoring your payload or your exploit on Windows base, and you know that it won't work, right? So there is no way that the code that ought to be running on Windows can work on Linux. So it is important that you gather this information, and these are the one of the two actually that we need. Is a what is it called? Is a Chrome extension that you can download. So I think we're going to get there in this particular lecture. So let me proceed. So as I said, the basic understanding of how web application works and its underlying components. I just show you now. Those are the components. Everything you are earlier, those are the components that and server-side programming languages, right? You must understand HTML, even though you don't know how to do it. You don't know it is not necessary that you know, but you must have the basic understanding. You must be able to read through it, even though you can't code it. Uh, Example of client-side programming language: you have HTML, we have JavaScript, you know, and the example of server side, we have PHP, the one I show you guys earlier. We have PHP, we have Ruby, we have Python, So those things, you must have the understanding of those before you can think of getting started in bug bounty. So let me proceed. So now, how your skill, own your bug bouncing skills. And as you can see, I say here that the only way by which mastery is gained is through practice, right? It is important. I know there are some you guys are facing challenge in having the equipment or the tools or the lab actually that you need to run all this, right? Even though you may not have much resources to practice, but the little one you have, there are ways to actually go about it to lessen the pressure or to lessen the to lessen and to utilize the little resources you have. So as you can see, it is through practice. The only way to hone your skill is by sharpening. Is by practicing, and as you practice, you will surely be making some measures of progress. So following are some of the free platforms that you can use to own your cybersecurity skill. We have free, as you can see here, this Aka 101, right? I will be opening it here. So I will be before I come back to Aka 1, but let me first of all open Aka 101. But the mostly one, I think for the sake of time, the one I will actually recommend that you guys start with is Portswigger. As you can see, let me open it. So you need to first of all register, right? So I have an account here. I will just automatically pop in my credentials. So this is part of security. I don't know if you have heard about what is it called, password management. You can see that I didn't have to type my password, my email address, and my password. There's something they call password management that I'm using. It actually inserts it for me. So I will just log in now. As you can see, this is the place I'll be coming to under academy. So from here now, you can be practicing what is known as right. Session I please, can you still hear me? Hello?
Sir, the line is breaking, sir. I can't really hear you, sir.